Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about the third point from the API Flight Logbook. This topic covers the local site rules and air traffic anti-collision regulations. For this, we'll use the same logbook which includes theory in the final sections. On page 52, you'll find a graphic explanation of the traffic rules, especially anti-collision. The first rule, of course, is to avoid collisions. How do we achieve this? Normal traffic means that each paraglider moves to the right, much like road traffic rules. That means if I'm flying in one direction and there's another paraglider flying toward me, I move to my right, and the other paraglider moves to their right, keeping a safe distance between us. However, sometimes pilots, either out of ignorance or distraction, don't follow this rule. Instead, they maintain their course towards us, or worse, if I move to my right, they move to their left, which leads both of us directly into a collision path. It's similar to what sometimes happens when walking. You move one way, the other person moves the same way to avoid you. Then you both try to correct your direction and end up bumping into each other. The same thing can happen in the air, and it could be tragic, even fatal. So, we must avoid this at all costs. Both pilots should turn right, and if the other person doesn't do the right thing, we shouldn't insist on keeping our course. If I see the other person not following the proper traffic rules, I should look behind me, ensure the space is clear, and make a quick 180-degree turn to get out of the situation. I shouldn't try to hold my ground and continue straight towards someone who's flying incorrectly. If I see an imminent collision, I should check that the air is clear behind me, turn around, and move out of the way. As mentioned earlier, if two paragliders are on a collision course, both should turn right. If they do, there won't be any issue. The same principle applies when there's a slope or ridge on one side. The paraglider with the slope on their right has the right of way, while the one with the slope on their left must move aside. The basic idea is to follow the rule of keeping to the right. If we have a hill, the pilot with the hill on their right gets priority to continue using the lift dynamics, while the one with the hill on their left must briefly move aside, allowing the other paraglider to pass before returning to their path. Now, what happens when I want to overtake another paraglider? If I'm flying behind a slower paraglider, such as a school glider, and we're both flying in the same direction, for example, both heading south, and I'm flying a faster, more advanced glider, I can overtake the slower one on either side as long as I keep a safe distance. Remember, the slower glider might turn unexpectedly, and if I'm too close and they haven't seen me, we could collide. So, when overtaking, I must give plenty of space to avoid any accidents. When should I not overtake a paraglider? When flying dynamically along a ridge or cliff, the pilot ahead, even if slower, is likely using the same lift dynamics and is probably flying very close to the mountain. Overtaking them near the mountain puts me at risk of flying too close to the terrain, and overtaking them on the outer side forces the slower pilot to fly even closer to the mountain, putting them at risk. In such cases, instead of overtaking, I should turn back, gain some distance, and then resume flying. Before turning, always look behind to ensure the air is clear, then turn, gain distance, and continue using the dynamics. Avoid overtaking the slower paraglider ahead when there's a mountain involved, as you don't want to endanger yourself or the other pilot. When flying in thermals, we often spiral, making 360-degree turns. The rule is that the first pilot to enter the thermal sets the turning direction. If I enter a thermal and turn right, all pilots entering after me must also turn right. The same goes for turning left. It doesn't matter if I'm higher or lower, the first one in sets the direction. Once inside the thermal, the higher pilot has a better view and must watch out for the lower pilot. The lower pilot has a large blind spot due to the glider, so they often can't see what's above them. If I'm in a thermal, turning in the same direction as everyone else, but I have a glider below me rising faster, I need to give them space, even leave the thermal if necessary, because they cannot see me. Why must everyone turn in the same direction? If one paraglider turns right and another turns left in the same thermal, the chances of a collision are much higher. If everyone turns the same way, the risk is lower. However, collisions can still happen. The The risk is reduced, but not eliminated, so when flying in thermals with other paragliders, always keep an eye on who's above and below you because, although the chances are slim, collisions can happen. In landing, the paraglider with priority is always the one flying lower. If two paragliders are making their approach and one is lower, the higher pilot must give the lower pilot all the space they need, as the lower pilot has fewer options to maneuver. The higher pilot has more alternatives, so they must give priority to the lower one. Additionally, there are some exceptions depending on the flying site. For instance, in Miraflores, student pilots fly with a flag on their harness, signaling to other pilots that they must be given priority. In these cases, it doesn't matter who has the right side or who's higher or lower. The student with the flag has absolute priority. But this doesn't apply everywhere, as these are local rules. In some areas, students are required to fly without traffic during their first flights, so they don't have the added worry of managing air traffic or adhering to traffic rules. In some areas, the student must fly solo or in low traffic conditions with highly experienced pilots, and two students or novices cannot fly together at the same time. However, this can vary. In some places, students are introduced to flying with traffic early on. When flying in thermals, there are also local rules. For example, in service thermals close to the takeoff site that are well known and used by all pilots, the turning direction is sometimes fixed. Everyone must turn either right or left to prevent collisions. This is usually well established and known by the local pilots. We can also sometimes disregard traffic rules, especially the rule of keeping right, when flying with a pilot we know well. For instance, if I want to give way to another pilot, even though I technically have the right of way, I can signal with hand gestures or use the radio to let them know. However, these verbal or nonverbal signals should preferably be used with pilots we are familiar with. Using these signals with a novice or a foreign pilot could cause confusion. I only recommend doing this when flying with friends who know how we fly. As always, I'll leave some key questions for reviewing knowledge and related videos in the description box. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.